Very good. Today we're going to talk about parallel lines. We know that parallel lines are two lines that actually, as much as we extend, they're never going to get closer, they're never going to cross each other. But today we're going to look at these two particular parallel lines, and we're going to look at their equations, and then we're going to try to see what do we notice in their equations. So we're going to start with this one right here. We're going to call this one line 1. And in line 1, I want my equation. And obviously my equation, I want it as y equals mx plus b. So we are going to start finding m, the slope. How do we find slope in a graph? We always do rise over run. Okay, so in this case, we're going to go from this point right here to this point right here. And we're going to do our rise of run. First our rise, we need to go up 1, 2. My rise is 2. And then my run, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the rise was 2. The run was 4. We cannot divide, but our fraction can be reduced to 1/2. So the slope for the first line is going to be 1/2. Then we're going to figure out our b, which b is our y-intercept. Wherever my line, this line, line 1 in this case, is crossing the y-axis, right here, this y-axis. And that'll happen exactly here. This would be my b. So in this case, b equals 1. So now I can write my equation. For line 1 is going to be y equals m, which is the slope that we found, 1/2 of x, plus b, in this case, plus 1. Very good. Now we're going to do exactly the same with line 2. This is my line 2. Okay? Line 2. We're going to look at the equation. Same thing, we want it in y equals mx plus b. So again, we are going to start with m, the slope. And still, we're going to find our slope doing rise over run. Okay. So in this case, we're going to go from this point to this point right here. So my rise is 1 and my run is 2. So rise over run, 1/2. Now we're going to do our b, our y-intercept. And in this case, the line is crossing the y-axis right here at this point as well. And that is a -3. So b equals -3. So now I am ready to write my equation. Y equals m, which is 1/2 of x. And I know that the equation normally says plus b, but since right now my b value is negative, that's why we're going to say -3. Okay, so now let's focus on this. We have this equation and this equation. And what do they have in common? Both of my equations have the same slope right here. So we can say, and that's actually our rule, that for parallel lines, for you to know if you have parallel lines, the slopes have to be equals. That's why we say that parallel lines, M1, the slope of the first line, equals the slope of the second one. Meaning every time that I have two equations and I look at their slopes, if their slopes are equal, you can tell that those two lines are going to be parallel. So now in this example, what we have is actually two equations. Both of them are in the form y equals mx plus b. So the only thing that we're going to have to do is, as we have our y equals mx plus b, It's just to check for the slope. So in this case, the slope here is -2 and here is -2. So this is the way we're going to call it. The M1, the slope 1, is -2. The M2, the second slope, is -2. So M1 has to be equal to M2. The slope of the first one is -2. The slope of the second one is -2. They are equal, so yes, these are parallel. Okay. On the next example over here, in example number 2, we have a little bit of a different one because my first equation, it does look like y equals mx plus b, so I can tell that my slope here is 4. But for the second one, my equation does not look like y equals mx plus b. So the first thing that I'm going to do is going to be solve for y. Leave the y alone. So first, we're going to cancel the -8x with a positive 8x. What I do to one side, I do to the other. And then I'll have 2y equals 8x minus 2. Then we divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. So this is going to cancel. 8 divided by 2 is a 4x minus 2 divided by 2, 1. So what I did first was take my equation and solve for y. So now my equation that I have looks like y equals mx plus b. And I can tell that the slope of the second equation is 4. So is this still, the slope of the first one is 4, the slope of the second one is 4. So we can say that M1 equals M2, 4 equals 4. So yes, these two are parallel. So remember, if the slopes are equals, that means that your lines are going to be parallel without the need of graphing them. And if your equation is not in the y equals mx plus b, you're going to have to change it to look that way. Then you can compare your slopes. And if the slopes, again, are equal, then yes, your lines are going to be parallel.